Yeah, just keep an eye open for Don.
Yeah, will do. Okay, I think we are live on YouTube. For those watching the recording or the live stream, hang out for a minute while we do a little housekeeping. I'm going to send out the link and update the agenda. Okay. All right. Let's go ahead and kick this off. I am Chris Troutner. I help found the Permissionless Software Foundation, and I maintain fullstack.cash. This is the community committee meeting for the Permissionless Software Foundation. Go ahead and introduce yourself there, David.
Sure. My name is David R. Allen. I'm helping out with business development for the PSF, and yeah, that's basically it.
Right on. And we have a new joiner today, Steve. If you want to introduce yourself, Steve, that'd be great. Otherwise, we can wait till the end of the agenda.
I don't mind. Yeah, my name is Steve Tate from Glastonbury. I'm a new developer, and I've been working with the Permissionless Software Foundation's software, especially message.fullstack.cash. And I kind of represent like the end user and maybe some recommendations I have to offer, and also maybe some of the problems in the free speech scene that this application software you're producing will help to address. So yeah, that's basically me.
Great. Well, yeah, welcome, Steve. Glad to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
It looks like Daniel's joining. Hey, Daniel, welcome. We're live on YouTube. You want to just give a brief introduction about yourself, Daniel?
I'm Daniel. I'm a member of the Permissionless Software Foundation as a developer. Been working since the beginning.
Yeah. And looks like Don's coming in. Hey, you made it, man. We're live on YouTube, by the way.
Oh, hello, audience.
Yeah, we're just doing a round of introductions. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Don Wanton. I'm from Ava Labs. I'm a general manager and a PSF enthusiast.
Right on. Well, good. I'm glad we got a good little crew here. The agenda is fairly small. Let's go ahead and I'll bring that up. Okay, so here's the agenda. The link to this will be posted in the YouTube show notes after this is done recording. The first thing on the agenda is this third voting proposal for the VIP members. It is to create a slush fund of 10,000 PSF tokens in order to pay for like unexpected costs, tips, bounties, hackathon prizes, those sorts of things. Just basically community growth. The voting tokens were airdropped a couple weeks ago, and the voting is going to finish tomorrow. There is currently, I think these are the yes votes. No, those are the no votes. There's currently a little bit more than 2,000 out of 10,000 tokens for a yes vote, and I don't think there's any tokens for a no vote. So these types of expenditures for community building have historically been popular with the community. So I didn't expect a strong no vote against that. So it looks like it's going to go through tomorrow at noon. We'll complete the votes. So if anybody has not voted yet, be sure to do that before tomorrow. And yeah, that'll be great. Then we'll have a fund for bounties. So I just wanted to bring that up one last time before the vote is finalized. Does anybody have any comments on that proposal and the voting process for it? Okay, so we can move on. The only other thing that I had in the agenda is this upcoming Avalanche SLP bridge we're wrapping up. And so what it's for people who are not familiar with this yet, it will allow you to essentially send SLP tokens. It won't be generally. The first thing I need to point out is it won't generally work for all tokens. It'll only work for very specific tokens that have had bridges set up for them. So the PSF is going to set up a bridge for the PSF token, and we'll set up a bridge for other tokens. First off, we'll create like just sort of a fun token with like a faucet where you can just go get the tokens and play with this bridge. But what it does essentially is when you send your tokens to the Bitcoin Cash side of the bridge, it will burn those tokens, and then it will create new tokens on the Avalanche side and then send them to an address that you specified when you sent the tokens. It'll require 2 transactions on the Bitcoin Cash side. We'll have an app that does it so that people don't need to think about those specifics. And then it'll also work the other way. On the Avalanche side, you can send these tokens to the bridge, specify where on the Bitcoin Cash side those tokens should be sent. And so it will let you transfer tokens between blockchains. And then we're also going to set up a similar bridge between Bitcoin Cash and BCHA or eCash. So we'll be able to bridge all 3 blockchains. So the idea is cool. The tech is there, almost there. There is some sort of concerns that I wanted to bring up in this meeting, since it kind of affects the community, is we already have the token liquidity app on the Bitcoin Cash chain. We'd all like to see one on the eCash chain. I'd also like to see one on the Avalanche chain so that people can exchange PSF tokens for the native currency on those chains. So that's 3 pieces of software. And then there's the bridge between Bitcoin Cash and AVAX, and there's the bridge between Bitcoin Cash and eCash. And so that's 5 pieces of software to maintain. So it's a pretty heavy maintenance burden. And I really just wanted to get some thoughts from somebody other than me on what should we do about that maintenance burden? Who should bear the burden? How should we go about managing that burden? Right now, Daniel, you got some pretty strong chops on the Bitcoin Cash side. We've got Gary, who's not here, who's been doing the most of the work on the token bridge and is getting more familiar with the Avalanche side. I'm pretty familiar with the eCash side because it's just a fork of Bitcoin Cash, so there's not a whole lot of difference there. So we definitely have the talent. It's just a matter of managing this technical debt. Also, all 5 pieces of software have the ability to, burn or destroy or get hacked or otherwise like lose money, lose things with a market value to it. So that's the other concern. It's not just maintaining it from a standard software perspective. It's also the financial risk involved with all the pieces of software. So I'll just open it up there. This is intended to be a roundtable. What does anybody have any thoughts on what I just said?
Or are there any possible ways to kind of have the bridges create some sort of revenue that maybe they could self-fund at least at the very least the maintenance?
That's a really good idea. Yeah, we could certainly introduce a fee. I hadn't really explored that idea. I don't know why it hadn't really occurred to me to do that. So that's a really good idea, and that would be a very direct way to sort of solve that problem of the maintenance burden.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's definitely incentive for the PSF to do this because we want people to use our tokens, and if our token becomes a medium for transferring value between chains, that's good for the token. Mm-hmm. And so there's that. And then of course, other people will probably want to have their own bridge. And so that's another potential source of revenue, is having, you know, the developers that are part of our community who's familiar with this technology. You know, they could be paid to customize it for other companies. So yeah, I like that idea.
I think it'd be pretty well received, just because, you know, like the Avalanche Ethereum bridge, just because the gas fees are so high, you know, it costs like 60 to $100 just to go one way. So if you just tack on 50 cents worth of Avalanche or Bitcoin Cash or eCash or whichever way it's going, you know, I don't think anyone will notice.
Yeah, it's not prohibitive in terms of cost. That's a really good idea. Really good idea. Yeah, and then what do you guys think about the token liquidity app? So the idea behind the token liquidity app is we don't have to deal with exchanges. We don't have to think about exchanges. We don't have to worry about our token being manipulated by exchanges. But the app provides perfect liquidity between our token and the underlying asset, Bitcoin Cash. And I'm wondering if, like, probably I'm sort of leaning towards just having the one token liquidity app on Bitcoin Cash, or pick one chain. It could change, and then use the bridges to bring the tokens into that chain if people want to cash out of the token into a native asset, versus trying to maintain, you know, 3 different copies of the token liquidity app on each chain. But there's definitely trade-offs to that decision. And it's not something that we need to decide right now. We can definitely I'm more in the spirit of just getting a conversation going about that and exploring pros and cons. I mean, one con is the maintenance and the attack vector, the risks of, like, if we have a token liquidity app on each chain, then there's the potential on each chain for each individual app to, like, get hacked or have a bug or lose money some way, or just the time and maintenance burden. Versus having it on one chain, that lowers the maintenance burden, but it makes it less convenient for people. Anybody, say, on the Avalanche or eCash side, would have to transfer their tokens over to the Bitcoin Cash chain before they could cash out into Bitcoin Cash, and then they're going to have Bitcoin Cash, which is not necessarily something they want, and then they're going to have to, like, figure out what to do about that. So
Yeah, no, it's I don't know about that.
It already exists on the token liquidity app already exists on the BCH chain, so, and that's working. Creating the extra technical debt around going to Avalanche, which I think is still very much under development, and as well on the eCash side. So maybe it's best just in the short term to plan around keeping it on the one chain on BCH.
yeah, that tends to be how I'm leaning as well, particularly in the short term.
Mm-hmm. I think it sort of puts the impetus for the development on the other chains. So, you know, obviously, if it's working, they might want to see it on their chain, and you know, and to fund that development, we know BCH has a variety of funding mechanisms, and Avalanche has a variety of different kinds of funding mechanisms. So these are just things to consider, both with the staffing challenges and with the funding.
Yeah, that's a really good point, David. I mean, ideally, building this bridge and getting it functional will encourage more developers on the other chains, or on all 3 chains, to join this community, and maybe take up arms and you know, sort of do some of the heavy lifting, just because it's something they want on a personal level. Yeah. Okay, well, let's continue this conversation in the Telegram channels, particularly the VIP channel. If there's any VIP members of the PSF that have strong opinions on this, I definitely want to hear it, and I want to hear you voice it on the VIP channel, but also in the more general Telegram channel. This would be a great discussion to pick up. Yeah, I think we pretty much touched on all three of those points. We discussed the technical challenges of supporting multiple blockchains. We discussed staffing challenges and funding, and I think we touched on a few ways that this tech could grow our community. Well, that's pretty much the agenda. Steve, you had some thoughts. Why don't you, expand on what you were saying in the introduction and just some of your thoughts. And I'd love to hear how you've been inspired by the work that we're doing in this community and sort of where you see where you want to take it.
Well, I've been in radio in the underground scene since 9/11, and I used to be from the infounderground.com, and we were doing stuff on the bankers and stuff like that. And I found that when we're releasing podcasts for radio, it's one of the main applications for example, IPFS, which is kind of how I bumped into you guys, was having IPFS links to podcasts which were being censored either through deep packet inspection or something. And we couldn't actually gain access to our links except through a VPN. Now, we're reaching a point today where we can't actually access, even through a VPN, some of these links, for example, InSync, we're having real major problems. And I'm trying to set an example for the others by using IPFS links to my podcasts when I'm on a guest on the show or when I'm a caller. And in the comments sections, I post these IPFS links and they always get through. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to push IPFS more. And then I came across the Permissionless Software Foundation, and I was looking at how the novel use of Bitcoin Cash with IPFS in a Docker container to produce a canned package, white label that could be replicated. And the immediate obvious implications were for the underground radio scene, particularly the American audience, quite well known in America. So I started working with that. I work with like a Raspberry Pi, but then I had to go on to Ubuntu. I was kind of looking at how easy it is to actually follow the tutorials, for example, and to replicate this for various sites within the scene. So if you go to grism.blogspot.com, or Mamishit as it's known, there's lots it's like a podcast aggregator of the whole free speech scene in one, and there's a bit of a scene there, and most of the other scenes bolt onto that and release their audios. Now the problem is it's heavily censored, so by showing these IPFS links and that there was packages available with kind permission from yourselves that we will be able to work with, things like Blackbird 9 and these BB9's trading posts, they were able to take some of this software on board and to actually try and implement it. So I was looking, for example, the IPFS upload feature that you have within your software, and possibly maybe make some recommendations to have like a more comprehensive canned package for the newer developer who's maybe not so skilled. So these features are actually built in, possibly for a PSF token reimbursement. I have been offered work to develop for several websites on your white label, one of which was the Bundys, I believe, Ammon Bundy at the moment, who they're going after. And I've been speaking to one of his group called Patricia Aitken, and they're offering to pay, but I don't really have the time to do that because I've got other things going. But I would love to sort of forward these people onto yourselves in terms of workload. So maybe using the PSF token for like canned packages and doing deals with certain groups within the free speech scene could actually help promote the Permissionless Software Foundation, give it a higher profile, give it a direct application, and generally sort of promote a wide understanding about the technical implementation requirements needed for that. And there are essential features which are becoming imperative within the scene at the moment. So the IPFS upload feature, I like the encrypted IPFS chat. I thought it was genius, browser to browser. being able to create your own SLP token yourself. So part of moving the free speech scene onto Bitcoin Cash wasn't just that you could store the IPFS hash on the Bitcoin Cash network. It was that people can create their own token and their own value, of which I've been moving into that scene, creating an UNO tether on the SLP chain. So I wouldn't mind if, and with the rise of NFTs, obviously as well, there's another application there. If we were able to sort of incentivize the PSF to sort of work more with the free speech scene, to promote a wider tutorial base for slightly less skilled people to get their websites upgraded, I think this could have big ramifications for the free speech scene if we work with them. So I think I do have some of the stuff written down, but I just wanted to sort of leave it to the floor if anyone wants to comment on that.
Man, this is really encouraging to hear, because I definitely want this PSF organization community to tap into. We're so sort of, we started out very Bitcoin centric, very technology centric, and I want us to that's the whole purpose of these CommComm meetings, is to reach out to the non-technical people who are like the free speech people who are interested in the applications of this technology for humanitarian reasons. And that's one of the things that I struggle with personally in a leadership role, is sort of breaking down the barriers between the tech side and the humanitarian side. And so I would love to get your help reaching out to these other organizations. And speaking from experience, the challenge that we have with these types of organizations is the same challenge we have with businesses, in that there's a wide gap in terms of technology between the high level things that they want to do, and then the low level sort of realities, the nuts and bolts that need to happen. So you listed off, several things there. So basically, if you take anything away from what I'm saying, or because I'm about to say some other things that might make your eyes glaze over, but basically, yes, definitely want to reach out to some of these groups and work with them. And the main challenge lies in just bridging that tech divide of getting from a high level of what they want to achieve, and then getting to the point where we can actually achieve on the low level nuts and bolts.
Can I just comment on that, Chris?
Mm-hmm.
Just quickly, 2 points. I like the fact you can take the IPFS hash when you're serving it up and put it on the .eth domain on Unstoppable Domains, and then you can use the DNS to get a .link on the end of that. And I actually quite like that application with Unstoppable Domains and the .eth and the .link. And the other one is the APK. If you could release like a working Android AirPack for mobile devices, that could perhaps help in that respect, in terms of usability for the end user, much more perhaps directly applicable, because people just want the Android APAC, download it, there it is, it's working. So maybe some work with the Android there, and referencing perhaps Unstoppable Domains and the application there to host your website, the text record as a .eth, rather than say on a conventional central server, to actually put it on the IPFS to get a .eth .link, and then you got a HTTP link, haven't you? So I think those are 2 things in terms of accessibility to the lower end users that could maybe sort of help you there with.
Those are good points. And we're actually exploring both of them. In fact, the APK, we have an APK for wallet.fullstack.cache. We haven't yet put one out for message.fullstack.cache, because there's some challenges around the rate limits. But we've definitely been exploring taking our web apps and then converting them into a native Android app. Daniel in particular has been leading that up, and it's been going really good. We really just have a couple minor technical challenges to figure out before that's basically what we're going to do to all of our products, like message.fullstack.cache, wallet.fullstack.cache, and chat.fullstack.cache. Those are all going to have their own Android native apps. We probably won't bother putting them in the store because they'll probably just get banned. But what's nice about Android is that you can just generate the APKs and anybody can grab them and sideload them. And then with respect to unstoppable domains, I think I produce a website called uncensorablepublishing.com, and it's the same idea as unstoppable domains. They're just more ETH focused, where we're more BCH focused, but in terms of like what we're doing and how we're doing it, it's largely the exact same thing. But I think I need to just bow to the tide of popularity and embrace that unstoppable domains way of doing things. So yeah, both. But yeah, we're both looking into both of those things.
That's about it, really. That I wanted to just comment there.
That's great. A couple other things you said that I wanted to just touch on. We're exploring in terms of fighting censorship. Putting the content on IPFS is a critical first step. And then there's the sort of the hosting of the IPFS content, having some host of last resort to keep the content on the network is important. And so that IPFS pinning service that's on message.fullstack.cache, that's great because there's no sign up. You just pay some Bitcoin Cash and someone's going to host that content for you. We use a company called Textile behind the scenes, so I really encourage you to check them out if you haven't. Textile.io, and they're the ones that's the pinning service behind the scenes there, and they have they're on the forefront of the technology with Filecoin, and so Filecoin, it was created to be that sort of server of last resort, and to be able to retrieve the content from Filecoin when nobody on the active IPFS network is hosting it. And so, we're definitely exploring that. And anyways, like that is to say, like if that's of an interest to you, I'm happy to pass on any knowledge I have on that and work with you on pursuing. I'm very big on fighting censorship and making it impossible for state actors to prevent someone from accessing information.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Steve, where do you think we should take this from here in terms of reaching out to some of these communities?
I think there's two main types that come to me. One of those who have got, say, publishing, that they've made their own book, yeah, and they can't get a publisher, say, like in hard form, so they're having to use like PDFs. Having those guys have some sort of publishing via IPFS, but also like getting it distribution as well, so it becomes like widely distributed. That could be good. The other one is podcasts, as I've mentioned. So getting to each of the main sort of free speech sites, mainly those who've gone about the bankers, to be honest, and getting those guys to understand not just the technicalities, but the value of some of the principles you've been advocating, and to sort of move the scene and the movement in a certain direction, rather, because most of the people, like say in the free speech scene, a lot of them are all musicians, or something like non-computer literate, for example, and their eyes just glaze over when you talk about IPFS to them. But like the power of it in terms of censorship resistance and distribution, what it's capable of. So I think you'd have to approach each of the individual sites from the jocks, and then you'd have to go to the authors as well, for the more document orientated rather than audio. And I think basically the chat function, the IPFS chat function, the most recent one you've been working on, that I find very intriguing. So being able to, a lot of people have built-in chats into their site when they're going like they're live streaming. I have seen like live streaming concepts on IPFS, and I'd rather that people somehow like a canned easy package to do that rather than having to use something like StreamYard.
I believe the library also just launched live streaming.
Right. Well, that's interesting. So yeah, the chat function. I think the third thing to take away is I think that chat function is actually quite important, the
Yeah.
IPFS chat thing, and the browser to browser. So if we can sort of push those three things, the documents, the authors, their websites, and those people, then you've got the jocks and their sites. Quite often, you have a site that might have 20 odd, 30 odd jocks, like Freedom Slips has. The other sites, I say like Radio Albion, they might only have say 6 or 7 quality. Um, I think some of it is more important than others. Some of it you just get the solo crew, but their audios are really high quality material. So I think, and they have a large audience. For example, No Agenda is very good. No Agenda.net, which is like a standard free speech alt light. If you go to those guys, you should be able to get a higher profile, and obviously that feeds back into the PSF tokens. So if you can feed them towards fullstack.cash and for them to actually pay for those services, and in conjunction with the Android app, for example, and the DNS link, importantly, I think it could all come together. It's kind of like weaving a tapestry, so you end up having the pattern at the end. And I think the personal relationships, the human capital is very important for knowing what you're directly targeting, that demographic to which this technology is directly applicable. Not just, by the way, within the English-speaking Western world. I'm sure there's your wider aim to make free speech everywhere. I agree with that, and I think we can appeal to other countries in different languages along the same lines. Could be quite nutritious. I mean, where is the free speech scene in China or Japan or Burma or wherever these places are? It would be useful to perhaps find ambassadors who speak both languages to contribute to the meetings, not just the state of their free speech scene and what their requirements are, but also possibly where they maybe want to push it towards. Are there some like unforeseen things that they're encountering that we can perhaps adapt to? So yeah, I just want to keep it short. That's kind of those things, those recommendations, documents for the authors, the jocks on the podcasts, and the chat function, which could be act as a bolt-on to each of the home websites.
Yeah, those are great ideas. So make sure you reach out to me one way or the other, either, Telegram's preferable, or Twitter, or message.fullstack.cash, however you want. But let's get together after this. I definitely want to sort of reach out to some of these people in your network that you mentioned.
Yeah.
But since you've got a bit of a technical background, just a few thoughts I want to share with you of like sort of tech coming down the pike that I've been researching. One is these pay to write databases, and so it's Orbit DB is a peer-to-peer database on the IPFS network, and I've been playing with their code and getting it to a point where it's a database that anybody can write to, but in order to write to it, you have to prove that you've burned a token, like a PSF token, and that's your ticket to write to the database. So it's the incentive. What I like about this is the incentive model, but in terms of free speech, it would allow people a place to, like a blockchain, store information that's immutable and uncensorable, and it's uncensorable because it's shared among several parties who have an incentive to maintain it. And then shoot, I lost my train of thought. There was something else I wanted to point out to you, but yeah, Steve, let's definitely get together after this offline, and let's talk about how I can reach out to some of these other people in the free speech movement that you're aware of.
Yes, definitely. I'm mainly probably on Telegram would be better.
Great, perfect. That works great for me.
All right. God bless. Speak to you soon. All right.
Cheers, buddy.
Bye.
Does anybody have anything else they want to talk or add on to what Steve said? Oh, you're muted, David.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say a lot to take in. Applications and front ends and all sorts of stuff that needs to be built. So it's great opportunities going forward.
Yeah. This is really encouraging. Okay, well, I think we can probably call that a wrap. Always surprised at how productive these meetings are.
Thanks, Chris.
Right on. Okay, guys. You cheers. Thanks for attending the meeting.
Oh yeah, definitely. See y'all next week.